All right. So, hey, everybody. We have 0 people watching, but it'll take a minute.
So, do you want me to log off
people.
And log on as a
we're good.
viewers?
Get your kids.
We now have 14 people, so it picked up really quick.
Oh, wow.
So, hey, we got Chad here. So here's how the comments work. If anyone is watching and they decide they want to leave a comment, so welcome to the Salute to Scott, everybody, if you're watching. This is Ryan Boyles. I still am an IBMer. Worked with Scott once upon a time. But if you enter a comment into YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching us right now, I can put it up. So if you want to leave a story just in the comments and not come on screen, I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them up on the screen here as we're sharing stories with the folks that are on camera. So thanks for joining, everybody. We don't have a great we don't have like a once upon a time set upon format here on the screen here as we're.
Oops, sorry, that was me.
That's all right. I'm hearing a bit of an echo, but that's what happens during the pandemic while we're learning video.
There's George.
We got George in the house. Hey,
George.
So who all do we have on camera? Let's introduce ourselves really quick. So I'm Ryan Boyles. We've got Jenny. I only know you as Jenny Sussin, but I heard you got a new name.
I did, but don't worry about that, Scott. Scott would never call me by my new name.
I know, right?
Jenny Sussin.
The J Sus is in the house. All right.
Scott and I worked together while I was at IBM, and we started doing live stream video work. And for some reason, IBM was footing the bill for us to go to a series of different conferences. First, it was just the 2 of us, and then Todd Watson joined, and then Jesse, and we had this whole crew, and it got really fancy. All joined. So we did that for about 2 years, and he told me how to be a professional.
Yeah. Well, I feel the same way.
Right. Relative.
Yeah.
Relative, right? It was like, do what you can do.
Yeah, that's what it was. He was working in that direction with you, Sussin, but at some point he bailed on that initiative.
Nice. All right. So we also have Noah Cutler in the house from Austin, Texas, and I believe you work in a comic book shop, is what it looks like to me, right?
Yes. It's I'm working in the back room right now, and I'm actually representing the Austin contingent, I suppose.
Nice.
And I met Scott probably at the same time I met Jenny, because I was in a business unit and was the person that was more social, I guess.
It was a relative at the time. It was I would say the same. It's a relative term, though, right?
Yeah, it was, and also it was a specific skill set, and so I would be working with him to get people booked in interviews and things like that, and knew him also just in town as well.
Yeah. So keep the comments coming, folks. I'm going to put up on the screen as we're talking. We have Mr. Delaney Turner. Delaney, where are you? Because you've been all over the globe since you left IBM.
Yeah, so I was in Ottawa. I lived in Colombia for 4 years in Bogota. My wife got a job with immigration. And now I'm coming to you from the 23rd floor of an apartment building on First Avenue in New York. We've been here for about 2 weeks. So
nice.
Now.
Well, welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Live from New York.
Thank you for joining. So I'm just going to quickly go around, and we can come back to story time.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to explain to everyone who's watching how they can join if they want to get in on the action, because we can have up to 9 people or 10 people, I think, here in Brady Bunch mode if we need to. So Tim Washer, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I worked with George Faulkner in Armonk on. I think we were producing The Future of, a podcast series, and that's how I met Scott, through that. And we had I'll stop with the stories before I go to the stories.
We'll get to it here. So, Mr. Jesse, Mr. New York, how are you?
Hey, Ryan. I'm actually not in New York right now.
You're not?
I'm actually in Massachusetts. Okay. But I do still go back there from time to time. Imagine that. So I, like Jenny, knew Scott from our live stream days at IBM when we were traveling to Las Vegas. I don't know, what was it, 2 or 3 times a year? Felt like 5 times a year, but it was basically a blur with 16-hour days and lots of laughter and lots of great stories and dinners and things like that. And we'll get into more of that later. But
Yeah.
Scott was just a very, very special person. He was a father to us all. So really, really happy to be here.
Yeah, man, it's been heavy. I don't know about you guys, but like for me, I feel like I didn't even know Scott as well as many of you that were in the trenches with him, probably more than me. But I just want to. I'll kick this off. So I organized this because I just felt like even though I'm working in social media, I felt like a social media post or a photo or a memory, just dropping it out there on Facebook or whatever was not enough. I really wanted to get together with everybody and share some memories. I haven't seen many of you. Like Noah, you and I probably saw each other 2 years ago. I haven't seen many of you like in a decade or something, right? Like it's been a while. So my memory of Scott, just to get this started, is my history is that I've worked at IBM since 1947, and I'm what they call a lifer now, I guess. My 24th anniversary is the 19th.
Wow.
I started out in development. I was a coder coming out of NC State in RTP. And I did that for a decade and change. And then I got convinced to come over and put social media in my title and work for marketing. And the first experience I had was actually coming to Impact back in 2011, I think, and meeting Scott, meeting Jenny, meeting Daryl, meeting Jesse, meeting Janet, meeting Kimberly, meeting Larry, Traola, meeting the whole gang, right, to produce the Impact Conference. And like you said, Jenny, like they gave us permission to like produce a TV show and do live stream for the very first time. And it was like magic to me. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I see Scott and I see Turbo Todd on stage and I'm like, wow, this is really cool. So I was just happy to be a part of that. And that my memory of Scott was just that he was so calm and so like professional and so like he had his shit together. Like he knew how to do it, right? And I just looked up to him like almost like, I mean, weird. It was like he was not officially a mentor, but I look back on it 10 years later and I'm like, I wanted to be him when I grew up. I mean, that's the only way I know how to put it now. It just kind of hit me this week, which is really like depressing and but happy at the same time. So that's my Scott story, just to get started.
I'll go. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Jesse. No, you go.
Well, I was just going to say, just so people know what kind of these days were like for us when we were doing this streaming thing at IBM. They would send us off to a conference and we would all arrive there and we would have a stage and we'd all just be kind of hanging out with a stage and Jenny was instrumental in kind of arranging the first iteration of that. And so it's wonderful to see her face back here again. And so we would all be sitting around and then inevitably, there was a lot of like downtime, but then once everything started, it was like 15 minutes, an interview. Every 15 minutes, you would have an interview. Oh, next person here, mic them up, get them on stage and everything. And I think the thing I remember about Scott, more than any, I mean, obviously he was very compassionate and listening and everything. There's, incredible listening skills and everything, but he was just so present. He was just so present and good natured. And I'm sorry I cut you off, Jenny, but please, I want to hear what you have to say.
No, Ryan, when Ryan had reached out to let me know Scott had passed, I haven't spoken to him in a while and it was too long. But Scott really made you feel special. Like he made you feel like you were important. And, talking to Ryan over the past couple of days and looking at the grand scheme of things, like somebody like Tim, like you knew Scott longer than I did. And Jesse, you've been working with him now longer than I have. But I think you're right. Like he just made you feel like it was okay. And I mostly worked with him and then Todd. And it was just like this great, they're just completely different people. And Todd would always be mad at us because we weren't taking it seriously enough. and Scott didn't have an iPad, and that was really pissing Todd off that Scott didn't have an iPad. And I didn't do enough prep work, and like Scott would have to go calm Todd down. But you know, like I don't know where I got off thinking I could talk to these executives who made like probably about 10 times as much money as I was making. And Scott just made me feel like, oh yeah, of course. Of course you're going to go talk to Arvind. Like, of course you're going to go talk to, like, Arvind is the CEO of IBM now. Scott's like, yeah, that's fine. We're just going to go talk to him and it's fine. And Todd's over in the background freaking out. So yeah, it's just funny when I look back at like all of our old posts and stories and stuff. It's always just Scott. There's one he's hiding under a desk complaining his room is too small, like stuff like that. It's like classic Scott.
I remember that. I remember it. Wasn't that so? That was a gag where he like we put him in like a flight case, and it was like the gag was like he had to stay in the flight case because he couldn't leave and be too far away from the stage. So he like slept in the flight case at night, along with all the ThinkPads and the lights or whatever. And yeah, that was Scott. I mean, Scott. So he could be super serious and yet very disarming with like just the dry humor at the same time. That was my experience anyway.
And Jenny, you bring up a good point, because something as I'm thinking about it and as we're talking about it, you know, we put a lot of people in front of Scott that had all sorts of power at the company. That could do all sorts of things. We may or may not have an ice station Zebra IBM that many people get sent to. That's a possibility. But Scott did two things which I thought was very interesting. One is everybody was like the same in the sense that he gave the same attention and focus to everybody. And the other is that it was an enjoyable experience because year to year, we never had somebody that was like, I don't have time to do that. I don't want to talk to this person. Like there was never any pushback. It was always like, oh, great. Yeah. You know, that's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He, I'll go next. For me, Scott was always part of the Scott and Todd show. And I sort of knew, I met him as part of the combo. And coming to IBM through an acquisition and hearing about, you know, the Turbo Todd and Scott show, I wanted to be part of that because as a frustrated former broadcaster, seeing the opportunity to be able to, you know, pretend like we were back on TV with all of the trappings and the, you know, the sheer terror of live TV, no matter how much you prepare for it, you know, that something can possibly go wrong at the last minute, but it was never like that with them. And I just thought it was something very special to be part of because everybody, you know, after a while, a lot of people wanted to be on the Scott and Todd show because it had that kind of reputation. And I remember, you know, later on being the sort of the producer or at least the scheduler of it, you know, trying to juggle all of these, you know, Arvind's schedule and every other executive, people who could, you know, send you, you know, to Ice Station Zebra. And, but it was always just, he was always that calm, steadying influence who had that smile. And I never did get to see him drum. It was like this other Scott that everybody knew. You know, he seemed like the musician who just happened to work at IBM. And there's a lot more of them out there than you realize. But it's unfortunate that our time in Austin never allowed me to see him play. But it was really special to be part of that show. And even as I think Ryan and Noah and anybody who did social over the last couple of years at events saw the scope and the sophistication and the production values and the budget for a social media program for an IBM conference just went hockey puck in terms of its complexity and its planning time. But as you say, like it never went to Scott's head. He was always just the steadying influence, like, yeah, it's all good. We'll get it done. We'll get through it. And, you know, Todd was sort of the the wild card, but Scott was like, they were like the sort of the yin and yang.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So let me just remind everybody that if you're watching, you can leave comments. We're going to show them on the screen here. I'm trying to get caught up as I'm also looking for messages from people. If you want to send me a private message, or if you just want to leave a public comment too, if you want to come on camera, it's as easy as just saying the word, and I'll give you the StreamYard link. You load it up in your browser, and you can jump in here Brady Bunch mode with the rest of us if you want to say something on camera. But please do if you have a Scott story to share.
Washer, you've got a bunch in there, Washer.
I know. So Jenny
man.
says that Tim has all the goods, all the good stories. So what else do you got, Tim?
But I can only share one of them per legal. Only one was approved. Gotcha. So I met him when I think George Faulkner introduced me to Scott when Scott was with Developer Works, and I just loved George, and I didn't fit into Armonk at all. We should, every project we did, we knew we were going to get fired. Absolutely every project we knew we were going to get fired. And Scott was the same way. He's just such a maverick. He's like, no, we're going to do it the right way. And so George and I, we had an immediate connection with him because of that, because he knew how to do it the right way. And he also knew how to get it done the right way, and to say no to all the other dumb ideas that came up through committee consensus. And so I love that about him, and just he was a joy. And I did see him play drums at South by. We went to go see him, and that was great. And I had an interview. They let me on the show. I had gone to Cisco, and Scott invited me on, and he and Todd, and we did an interview there at South by. It was just hysterical. We had so much fun. Oh my gosh! And I tried to find it. It's been marked private now, unfortunately. But man, that was a fun time. Yeah, he's just a joy, and just so kind and genuine, and just these stories are making me really sad. It hasn't sunk in yet. I mean, Ryan just told me about this, and last week, I got a few days ago, it seems like, and
yeah.
So I appreciate you letting me know, but man, it hasn't sunk in yet. And so,
well, he touched so many people's lives. He obviously, in the scope of his job, working in Developer Works, working on IBM TV, working at all the IBM conferences, many of those don't even exist anymore. The feature that I saw just a couple of days ago that I found that somebody had posted on his Facebook page, somebody had dug up a feature that IBM had done where I didn't even see this series.
I think it was George.
Right.
George did it. Yeah.
Well, I didn't even see this series. It was something that was just on Facebook, I guess. And it was Eyes On was the name of it. And then it was, a 3 or 4 minute thing where Scott was just talking about, how he finds, his whole sort of how he discovered music as a kid, and it was his calling. And it was my first view into that world because I never knew that side of Scott. And I feel sorry that I didn't. I mean, I wish I did, but it was awesome to see, him talk about it and see him play in his natural element. And I think they featured him with one of the bands that he plays with at a place called the Continental in Austin.
You never got to hear Moose in My House?
No.
Jesse, do you remember that?
I don't know. I guess I
I remember that.
He had like
Moose
a bunch of funny
house.
songs, like it was like Moose in My House. Oh, George! Hey, George!
I'm bringing on George. All right, hey George, how you doing? Welcome to the Scott Show.
I could not let this continue without being able to defend myself.
There you go. Well, welcome.
Yeah,
Rebuttals are definitely allowed here if you can make it interesting.
Well, it's you're talking about the Ion film that we did of Scott, and shades of what Tim was referring to earlier. I had zero permission to make that film, and it was not cheap. And I mean, we set out to Austin, with a crew and everything, and followed him around for a couple of days simply because he was one of the most fascinating people I knew at IBM. And that, to me was the essence of every great film we ever made. You know, if you found the right person, you had to capture it. And that film, we could put a link to it in here, I'm sure, or send it. I don't know, share it. It's on Ryan's Twitter account. It's pinned. But you know, Scott at one point in the film, he talks about one of my favorite things in music, which is knowing when to leave space in performance, in song. And I think that, you know, it's easy to remember Scott for all of the proactive things he did and just what a kind and amazing human he was. But I think, like, he, as others have already said, he also knew how to listen. And he knew when to listen. And, you know, and I got in trouble for making that film. But that's a whole nother story. That whole series. Let's not get into that. That was an IBM magazine show. It was like 5 films per episode, and it was pricey.
But George, it wasn't as much as a trip to Tristan da Cunha, probably.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. The easiest way, so if you're watching and you haven't seen the film, the easiest way to do that is go to the URL that I have here in the beacons that I set up just to give some links referring to Scott. And if you click on the Facebook link, it's on IBM's Facebook, and then you can find it, or you can find it on my Twitter, either one. We'll make it easier. I'll put a whole list here once we're done here.
You know, one more thing. I'm sorry, but I went to see him play every time I went to Austin, and he was playing, and man, he was talented. He really was an exceptional musician. So, you know, he wasn't just an amazing IBMer, and I'm sure an amazing father and husband and friend, but damn, he had talent. He really could play, and you can see it in that film. I mean, he was exceptional, behind and in front of the drum kit.
Yeah, and the one other thing I'll say is on that same page, he's got he has music on SoundCloud, he has music on SoundTune, he has music on YouTube, of course. There's some music that he just put out this year, and I don't honestly know the backstory, but really good stuff. I mean,
I know that
if you have
like
the chance,
there's like, he's got a great singing voice. I never knew that he put out a song in the beginning of this month that is gorgeous.
I can tell you right now, he would be amped that we're talking about Moose in my house. Like, he would. You don't understand. We did a whole fake interview. Like, he would be that. Like, this is it, man. Like, this is the peak. We're talking about Moose in my house on a broad live streaming event. This is it.
And speaking to his kindness, one of the more recent times that we had connected was when they were bringing a lot of folks back into the office in Austin. There was a group that was very specifically doing video in Austin and trying to set up, you know, local studios and things like that. And I forget if I had reached out to him specifically or maybe even saw him in the office, but connected him with that group, and he was just so giving of his time, of his knowledge, and just really kind of went above and beyond to help them set something up when really it was so outside of the realm, but he was doing it because that's just who he was. He was just helping folks out.
Yeah. Well, plus one. So Liz, hey, how are you? Welcome.
You might be on or not.
You might be on mute, but yeah, you know, we can hear you now. Welcome to the show. Do you have a Scott story you'd like to share?
So, is the
It sounds like you're cutting in and out here, but I'm not sure quite why.
Yeah, there we go.
Try again.
No.
Nope. Sorry about that. We'll keep trying.
This is a great 2021 style problem.
I know, right? That's okay. Why don't you? I think if you disconnect your headphones, you might have luck. Keep trying. All right. We'll welcome Liz back when she to try to fix that. Let's see. We've got Chad Williams who's going to join here.
Hey guys.
Hey Chad, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Well, thanks for joining. I know I showed a lot of your comments, and I'm glad you're going to join us on camera.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't sure I was up for it, but
well, I know what you're saying. I think that's a feeling that a lot of people have had, is that I know there's some really strong emotions, and it's just starting, like Tim said, it's just starting to hit us. I'll just say this real quick, and I'll let you speak. Andy Piper, who's in. So I had shared all these photos to try to commemorate Scott from the conferences that I worked at with him, and some of them featured Katie Linendahl, who I guess started working with IBM back in I don't know, 2011-ish timeframe, 10 years ago, and she was the host of our conference we had last week. So she's been working with us for a decade. I've worked with her, and then so we found all these photos, and then we found photos that were really great. That were the ballroom photo that shows the whole crew of like you, Jesse, and Kimberly and the whole crew, and then the photo that I love that's like Todd and Scott are like bookends with like James Governor and Andy Piper, and I love James and Andy, like they're just nerds, and I love I became fast thick as thieves, as they would say, with them, and we got up to a lot of trouble. But so Andy, I mean, tried to reach out to Andy. It's 2 a.m., 3 a.m. for him in the UK, but he sent a private video that I'm going to share with the group here in a minute. But he just was like speechless. He said he couldn't fathom, couldn't even compute that Scott wasn't here anymore. So I just wanted to share that from him. So let's see if your audio, Liz, I'll give you the mic. See if it's working. No, it doesn't seem like it. I'm sorry.
Let's do charades, Liz. Do you know charades? This is a book. You have sock puppets?
Liz's eyes falling out. Oh no.
There's a Bob Dylan thing. Just
it happens. I think she might have to detach the AirPods.
So I'll just I'll say that what really motivated me to come on here was I wasn't sure if there was going to be a sharing of Scott as a musician stories. I figured there was going to be a lot of IBM stories, and I certainly have my share of IBM stories with Scott. But I think the ones besides when he and I shared an office and a lot of the one-on-one conversations we had, and all of you have reflected on the one-on-one time you spent with Scott and how precious that memory is to you. But I think without a doubt for me was discovering just the depth of his talent as a musician. He played a house party here in my neighborhood, a few doors down from where I live in Austin, in the Allendale neighborhood. For those of you who are familiar, was a couple who were heavyweights in their own right in the music industry here in Austin, George and Susie. Susie's last name was Stern. I don't remember George's last name, but they would have house parties. And when I found out that Scott was playing in a jazz trio with the a pianist and a bass player. I knew, my wife and I knew immediately that we had to go see him play. And I told George and Susie that we'd be coming down, and that we had a mutual friend in Scott. And so, again, this is a house party, right? So imagine rows of chairs in a living room, all leaning towards a corner of a living room. And this is where the band was set up. And so what George and Susie did for my wife, Gazelle, and I is she sat us right next to Scott. So I was so close to him that I was worried I would get in the way of his percussioning, right? His drumming, beating. But it was so fascinating because I got to vicariously experience what it meant to play in front of an audience of people, because we were sitting right next to him. So we were looking out onto the crowd, the audience. It was just absolutely amazing. And to be so close to him while he was playing was really, really a treat. I think the only other time that it was a real special memory for us was a local musician here, very, very famous local musician here. His name is Alejandro Escovedo. Alejandro has this standing New Year's night gig at ACL Moody Theater, Austin City Limits Moody Theater downtown. And a couple of years ago, Scott joined his band to play that event. And so my wife and I went, and we had great seats. And I think for me, the fact that Scott, he had so many family and friends there, and he literally singled out everybody, made eye contact and waved from the stage. And that was just such a great moment. I was so proud of him. And I was frankly proud of myself for calling him a friend. So incredible memory.
Yeah, I think.
He was one of those people. Oh, sorry, Ryan.
Go right ahead.
He was one of those people that just every time there was an opportunity to kind of piece out and not go the extra mile with empathy and compassion and recognition of someone's unique contribution to things or something, he would come through in a really positive way and everything. I remember going to see him in Austin and everything. And, it's like, we've all gone to see certain musicians and who are friends of ours and bands and everything. It's like, oh, hey, thanks for coming. Right. But he always made you feel special. Like Jenny said, he always went the extra mile. It was just amazing. You felt really special around him. I'm cribbing your comments, Jenny, but it's so true.
No, I mean, like I said, I had no business doing what I was doing when I was doing it. But Scott was just like, no, we're allowed to. I'm like, okay. And he's like, they're going to give us money. I was like, really? How much? He's like, I think we can. The best is when they told us we were allowed to do video, because the first time we did it, it was just podcasting. And then they told us we could do video. And then I hope some of the IT guys from IBM are here listening, because they were asking us these really specific questions. They're like, how big do you need the stage to be? I'm like, Scott, how big do we need the stage to be? He's like, I don't know. Let's make it up. We're like 11 by 8. How many Ethernet connections do you need? I'm like, Scott, it's like 2. We need 2. We were just like making things up. And then it became the standard for how everything was operating. It was just hilarious.
Yeah, I remember that too. I mean, I feel like I came in after you guys got it started, and then it became kind of my job at the Impact Conference. All of a sudden, like, I was trying to tell. I remember vividly getting into fights with Larry, not necessarily Larry Traiola, but like Roger.
Chikazian.
It was like Roger Chikazian, and so I was like trying to tell him, no, we need 3 different bands of Wi-Fi, and we need to like set up different settings within the keynote so that people can tweet more, and then the stage itself, and then so it became like I was learning it, but I was also trying to, and they ended up spending like $80,000 that year buying new like Cisco equipment, for the company, so that we could do what we were doing. It was kind of audacious at the time, but we were just like you said, we were just like swinging for the fences, and we're like, well, this is just the way it is. This is the way it's got to be. If we need to buy, $100,000 worth of wireless equipment, like that's the cost of business, and they listen to us, right? It was fun.
Yes.
Yay! Woo! Yes, we have
God, this is
Liz.
huge.
Liz Clip is in the house. Yes. All right. Thank you so much for
you
trying again and not giving up.
Yes, no, thank you, and apologies for that. I think it
No,
was.
don't apologize. This is like Jenny was saying. This is like we're all struggling with video these days, but it's like yeah, it's fun time. So I want to give you the mic and give you the floor to talk about Scott.
Okay, thank you. So the Scott I knew was IBM developer Scott. Worked with him on Call for Code mostly, and the digital developer conferences we started to do since 2019. And so sorry, I'm reading the comments as they're coming through.
Sorry, Larry Traiola was just like ribbing me, I think. Bleeding being the operative word. Sorry about that. Go right ahead.
That's okay. So for one of these digital developer conferences, we had to have teams around the world live streaming, and one of the teams was in India. And so we were like trying to set it up, and we had a couple like prep calls and, making sure you have the equipment, right? And you got this cord, and so Scott would be asking them yep, we got it. Don't you worry. And we're all set. And we're like, okay. So we came on, it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, our time, we're sitting there and bless their hearts, they have nothing connected. And Scott's like trying to coach them through, like just like this, like, what cord is that over there? Now show me that. And he, like you said, he just would keep a calm, steady smile. Like we got through it and no sweat off his back. He had a good time doing it. That's every project, I would apologize. Like, sorry, we came in late, or, this took longer or whatever. And he'd be like, no worries. I'm just glad I got to spend time with you. And that's just the kind of guy he was. And then one really special time we went out to San Francisco to do a live stream, and we were just walking back from dinner, and we decided to walk instead of taking Uber. And it was just like the first time I'd ever just talked to him about his life and his family. And I mean, it's just amazing, his perspective on parenthood. So many parenting stories. And then I also got to see him perform too with Christopher Cross here in Tampa.
Nice. Yeah.
And it was, I mean, again, he's someone I knew in one box, and then you got to see him on stage doing a drum solo with, Christopher Cross, and just amazing. And afterwards came and saw us, and just as humble and regular as, as can be. And hey, check out the bus. We're like, so yeah, I don't think it's really hit me that he's gone. And I listened to that new song, Carry On. And I mean, it's like he's still talking to us. And that made me feel better. Because he wouldn't want us sad, and he just want us laughing and carrying on. So
my comment was, and I wasn't trying to be clever or witty, but it was just like when I posted that first photo, trying to let people know, I said, I can hear your smile from here, Scott. Like to me, he was all of it, like just his smile was like bigger than life. Like he was never not smiling unless he was cracking a joke or something. You know what I mean? Like it just seemed like he was, I think Jenny, you said he's pure light, and I agree. I don't know. He blew me away on a lot of levels.
Yeah, I agree. Anyway, I have to get my kiddos to bed, but I just wanted to remember him with you.
Yeah,
so
thank you. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Liz.
Thanks, Liz.
Am I remembering correct that he would take time off to go do gigs and tour?
Mm-hmm.
Chad, did he do that?
Yeah, especially with Christopher Cross. Prior to that, I think Elias Hoslonger in Church on Mondays, I think they were doing a little bit of a tour. Not so sure about that one, but I know he was doing that with Christopher Cross. And speaking of Christopher Cross, my wife and I are watching CBS Sunday Morning show, and they did a segment on Christopher Cross, and they did a segment on how he almost died from COVID, and that he had contracted, they think, COVID from being on tour in Mexico. So I immediately ran to my phone and I'm texting Scott, and I'm like, "Oh my God, how are you? I just saw Christopher Cross. He almost died. Were you with him? And sure enough, he was. And so we never got on the phone. We kept it via text, which now, of course, I regret. But he just basically told me that, yeah, they went down there, they had a great time, but Christopher being the big star, there was all kinds of people all around him, and the band just didn't have that much exposure. And it sounds like they just got really lucky, of course, especially on the plane ride back. But that he was, other than I think he said he was suffering from Montezuma's revenge or whatever. But anyway, that was another fascinating Scott story, especially with Christopher Cross. And for me, I don't know how many of you on here, native Austinites, especially at my age, we're few and far between. But I was living in Austin when I was young, obviously. But when Christopher Cross hit it big in 79, 1980, I mean, I was here. And so I've always looked at Christopher Cross as just being this huge mega star. And of course he was for a brief period of time. So again, I was so proud that Scott was playing with him. They were going on tour together. I would literally go around telling people oh, I know somebody who's toured with Christopher Cross. And, anybody who wasn't in their 50s was like, who's Christopher Cross? So, but yeah, anyway.
I just love seeing how big his kids are.
Yeah.
Like when we used to be on breaks, Jesse, I don't know. I can't remember who was where when, but we used to watch, he made these YouTube videos with his sons, and they'd have these really serious, classic Scott, right? They'd have these really serious discussions about the Texas Longhorn football team. And it'd be him and a 3-year-old and a 4-year-old. And he would be treating them like they were equal adults. He was not treating them like they were young children. He was like, please tell me how you feel the team is doing. And then his 3 or 4-year-olds very seriously would respond to the question. And this was all the time. There weren't just 2 videos. There were 20 plus videos of him doing this.
Well, I'm just going to tell you from experience, having 2 teenagers or 2, just raising 2 boys, I got to tip my hat to Scott for, I think it's part of that is just raising that, that many kids. 8 kids is I don't even know what to say about that. I do want to, so I was putting this up on screen. I didn't want to interrupt anybody, but there's a GoFundMe that his daughter set up to help support the family this past week. I was in touch with Rachel to let her know we were doing this commemoration tonight. She was very glad to see all of his work colleagues kind of do this for him tonight. But I just wanted to point out you can still contribute to help his family. They exceeded their goal last night. So I was looking at it changing in real time, and it was $1,200 away from the goal of $50K, and then $300. Now they're they've blown past that. But I just think if you have it in you, I want to encourage everybody to help support his family, who I can't even put into words what it's like to lose a father like this. So I just think it's a worthy cause to help them out.
Absolutely.
That's all I have to say about that. I don't know. I'm having a hard time putting stuff into words. So if anybody's more sort of eloquent or on point than me, please please do. I'm just
take advantage of the ability to promote via social media. I tweeted out.
Definitely.
After I made a contribution, so definitely do that.
Yeah. And I don't know if you want. There are so many great comments. I don't know if you know, but if you haven't used GoFundMe very much, I didn't even know this, but it has a whole comment thread of if you donate publicly, you can leave a story, and many people have left some really great comments on there about Scott as well. So and you can put photos. So there's been a lot of storytelling and a lot of people sharing about Scott outside of this broadcast, of course.
Did he come to? How did he come to IBM? like, was he a developer first and a musician second, or a musician who happened to stumble into coding? Like, what's the genesis of that story?
Well, I think I don't know about his introduction to IBM, but I do know from the video that George talked about earlier, he's been playing music since childhood. So it was always that's always been a passion of his.
So I think he's a product of the Texas RTF program, if my memory is serving me correctly. I'm almost positive he and I had that conversation. So I know that he came from that kind of an academic program background. And then, of course, he honed his chops on radio in Boston.
Okay.
I know that at one point, he may have had more than one radio DJ job or assignment in Boston, but I know at one point he was DJing the show on behalf of a Christian Science church. I don't remember what that radio program was called, but I know that he was doing that for a while. And then there were... So for a little while, he was, I guess, kind of moonlighting on his radio, television, film background. I'll never forget pumping gas at a gas station off Breaker Lane in North Austin, and all of a sudden I hear Scott. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? And there's Scott on the little monitor on the gas station pump. And he's schlepping, I don't even know what, because I immediately zoomed in on him and I exclaimed out loud, Scott! And people were looking at me and I'm like, I know that guy. I know that guy. So, yeah, you never knew. In Austin, Texas, you never knew when you would run into Scott.
Okay.
I went to that same... Oh, yeah, Laura, that's exactly it. Kat hired him.
Okay.
For developer work.
Kat Mandelstein. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
That makes total sense. And yeah, I went to that same. I was in the RTF program until I wasn't, but it makes sense that he had that background because that would have set him up.
Yeah.
For having all of that, all of those skills.
You know, say what you will about IBM, man, but like the fact that Scott just thrived for so many years. Like when Skype first allowed you to have more than one person, he got super amped, and in the closet in his house, he set up like a fake studio. I remember being on the phone with him and he's like, can you see my shirts? Can you see my shirts now? Like, what if I move? Can you see my shirts now? And like, he was really proud of this little closet studio he'd created. Like the fact that Scott was able to do that for so many years at IBM is incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. So I remember Jennifer Atkins, who's another IBMer, reminded me of a year, and I want to say it was 2013. Delaney, you might know. When we were at South by Southwest in Austin, and we took over this closet of a room and we set up a pop-up stage. And I think we were IBM had teamed up with Social Media Club or something. And we were doing these sort of pop-up interviews, and it was Todd and it was Scott, but George was there.
Yeah.
Susan was there. Susan Emmerich and Jennifer. I think so. Jennifer's comment on LinkedIn this afternoon was that's when she met me. That's when she met Scott. That's when she met all these folks. And, we were, again, it was another prime example of us just taking over this little corner of the convention center and trying to make magic happen. And that's what Todd and Scott were good at. We were supporting them doing it, of course, and hustling behind the scenes, but they made it look effortless, and they would just grab half the team and just grab them onto. I remember they would just grab people, bring them onto the couch, and we were just making up half the segments just to fill time, But it was good.
Yeah, I think I was at that one. Yeah. I think that was the year that I sat next to Soledad O'Brien and asked her if she worked for IBM.
Nice.
I had no idea who she was.
That's awesome.
And then
Was that a commentary on how corporations run big media, or was that just you not knowing who she is?
Yeah, not being a CNN watcher at the time, but probably both. But yeah, and she just sort of gave me this icy stare and just said, "No, oh, okay, I've screwed up somehow. I'll figure it out."
That might explain things, because I feel like I interviewed her at CES like 2 years later, and there seemed like there was some history involved, and I was like, I had never met her. I mean, obviously knew who she was, and I was like, wow, this is a big get. And she's like,
not another know nothing from IBM. Oh god,
right?
Oh man, we did this good one. Again, I think Jesse, I think you were there. An unnamed executive. I will not name who this was. We had a whole live stream stage set up, right? And this person was insistent that we go to the conference room they were in, which was like, it was like 20 minutes away. It was not close. They like made us take
I've already guessed. I think I've already guessed.
This huge walk. And we get there, and I remember Scott and Todd looking at me, and like Todd wasn't allowed to go in or something. Like only Scott was allowed to go in. And it was like, we're not allowed, like nobody be funny or try to make jokes, which was like all we did. We were together all day, every day. And it was just like, I remember we all looked at each other and we're like, no one's allowed to make jokes. Only Scott's allowed to go in. Like, we'll see you when we come out. And Jesse, it must have been you or somebody like goes in with the camera with Scott and comes out later. And they're like, that was bizarre. Like,
Surreal. Well,
So true. So true.
I want to say this person works for a competitor now. Yes or no?
I don't know what happened.
We don't need to go there. That's fine.
Yeah. I actually don't know what happened to this person at all. I remember it being. We were in a lot of situations like that, though, where like we were interviewing really, really, really brilliant people, and like I was 22, and Scott could like talk to anybody, and Todd was always like very angry about something. And it was just the three of us. Like the three of us had no business being together. And Scott was always like, "This is like again." He was just like, "This is fine. Like this is we're supposed to be doing this. This is okay." And I'm pretty sure Tim and George and like that whole crew introduced me to Scott. So I was like, "Well, those guys seem to know what they're doing, and this guy seems to know. So I guess it's fine."
Well, that's why Scott was so great, because, you know, miking up an executive is harder than it sounds. And some of them, as much as they do it, aren't really all that into it. But Scott always had a very, like, calm demeanor, very inviting, very relaxed. Like, he could make other people be relaxed. And you could see it where they'd kind of ratchet down and match his, match him in that way.
Yeah.
And also, don't forget, to your guys' point, these interviews were scheduled within seconds of their life, because these executives are running around, Vegas, and yet he kind of kept them like, at that level, which was amazing.
So I want to hear from Jesse.
I want to be doing that for IBM. I mean, because you did have executives who, I remember one executive who also won't be named, literally walked up to the stage within a second of going on and said, "Okay, I need to mic you up," and he just went like this, like, "Do whatever you have to do. Just put the mic on. I'm not going to say a word to you." And Scott was just so empathetic, and he was the perfect person to kind of grease those rails a little bit. So it was awesome.
Sitting in the control booth, I guess we would call it, with the headphones on for every show, Jesse, like you have bound to have like really juicy stuff, right? I mean, juicy stuff that all of our trips to Vegas. Well, I don't know. I think
one big trip to Vegas. No,
right.
It just seems like, we were there once for like 3 years, But yeah, there was definitely some stuff going on. But we were so focused at the time of like, we're cutting from this shot to this shot. Yeah. I was kind of serious, probably too serious.
Do you remember when you guys got to walk around? Do you remember when you got to walk around? That was big.
Oh yeah.
The year that you guys got to walk the floor.
Man on the street.
Yep.
Man on the street in the expo.
Man on the street was like the hot thing, and so you guys had like 2 or 3 mobile crews going around at some point. Like,
Something like that. Yeah.
I actually got to do Man on the Street with Scott at the IBM Global, what was it? Global Smarter Commerce. No, Smarter Commerce Global Summit. I knew I'd get it. In Tampa, actually. So that was, oh my God, that was such a blast. That was such a blast. And yeah, to Jesse's point, watching Scott in action, he made it look so easy, right? It was just so effortless. It was just incredible. It was so fun. It's the funnest assignment I've ever had, clearly, with IBM.
It was funny because when you were watching him, you went, "Oh, this guy just makes everything a piece of cake for the interviewers and everything. It's so easy for them." And then I remember one time they interviewed, they did a behind the scenes, and we had him interview us, the crew, the film crew behind it. And I got on stage with him, and when he looked at you and asked that question, even though he was empathetic and kind and everything, there's all that kindness in his eyes. It was intense, man, too. It was intense. So it was like, whoa, I'm on the spot. He had a real journalistic edge to him as well. But, it was not as easy as it looked.
No.
Yeah, Ryan, I know people are saying thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing this. I mean, I especially here's a person who made all of us feel very special, regardless of the last time we spoke to him. And in today's day and age, I might have completely missed that he had passed. And I so appreciate you reaching out, and I think everybody here does too. So thank you for taking the time to do that and make sure that we saw and we got together.
Yeah. Here.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to. I mean, honestly, like George was saying, he was a pro. We were all faking it. That's how I feel even now. Like, I feel like as much as I'm in front of a camera now, like, it kind of hit me like he was a model for me. I didn't even realize it at the time. I realized he was a pro. I didn't realize how deep that was until I tried to do it for a living. You know what I mean? Like, it's really bizarre. And I still think I suck. Like, I really have imposter syndrome, like, every minute of me doing it. You know what I mean? So, and then you got James Governor here chiming in earlier today, which to me, this is the most succinct comment. Scott was a professional, period.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In addition to all the other stuff about making it human, and I mean, all those things that are just, I didn't realize all the nuance. Watching him do it so effortlessly, right? You don't know it until you've walked in his shoes, I guess. And now I have such a deeper appreciation and sort of a, realization that it's not for everybody. It's not for the faint of heart, and you will screw up. So I want to play, if you'll indulge me. I have a video from Andy Piper. He wanted to be on the show. It's going on 3 a.m. in the UK.
He's awake, by the way, because he just.
You think he is?
Andy. I'm calling you out. Andy just messaged me on Facebook
maybe Andy's
Messenger.
just too chicken to come on camera, but
he's awake.
I don't want to say that. That's not fair. But he did send me a video to play, so I'm going to do that. Okay. So give me a moment to tee this up.
Guys, I need to drop. I'm going to have a glass of wine with my wife. So.
All right. Thank you, Chad.
Thank
you so much. Thank you for being on.
Thank you.
And
thanks, Chad.
Thanks. Take care.
I need to drop too, guys.
I'm hanging for the Piper video,
so
and then I'm going to sleep.
All righty. Well, we'll close out with this and any closing thoughts. Let me tee this up. Andy's in the comments.
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
I told you he was awake. Sorry, Piper. I feel like we should go back to our old dynamic.
Spinning it up. I'm trying to make this work. Here we go.
Hey, everyone, and friends of Scott. particularly. I'm sure everybody who's watching.
It's stuttering a bit.
Have been connected with Scott. My name's Andy. I left IBM about 10 years ago.
All right. I am going to put this in the chat. I think we've got some bandwidth issues, and it's not gonna. I want to give Andy his due. So I'll share that. I'll share that as a separate file and let folks watch that comment. But thanks, Andy, for sharing that. I appreciate it. I'm being down here where I am. I think my bandwidth is not the greatest for the moment. So Daryl, Laura, so many great folks that I haven't seen in a minute. So I wish I saw more of you out on the road, and we're not doing that now, and we don't all work together either. But I really do appreciate everybody joining tonight. It's great to see faces on screen. Great to see all the love and the outpouring in the comments, and just I just can't say enough about Scott, and I know you all feel the same way. And I'm just glad that we could do this little get together. Anybody that wants to share any parting comments, please feel free. Otherwise, we will wrap this up.
I wish I remembered the lyrics to Moose in My House, and then I would have given you one.
We could have serenaded everyone. I know this is. We'll save that for another time.
Okay.
I'm hoping that my sincere wish is, we appreciate each other a bit more now, not just because Scott's gone or not because we've been apart because of this, the year that wasn't last year, but it's made me reflect a lot recently that we just don't take enough time to stay connected to each other. And my sincere wish is that we use this as maybe a catalyst to, talk more, stay connected better. So I'm going to try to be a better friend to all of you. And I hope you'll do the same. So thank you so much, Jenny, Noah, Delaney, George, Chad, Jesse, everybody that joined, whether on camera or in the comments. Thank you so much for joining this stream tonight, and have a good evening. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks,
Bye,
Ryan.
everybody.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks for doing it.
See you, folks.